Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to see you guys. I hope that you watched my previous video. If you haven't already watched it, I'll put the link in the description. In that video I spoke about how to become an au pair, the application process. In today's video I will be discussing orientation, meeting your family, and homesickness. I'm gonna be explaining my experience, and I'll give you a bit of tips on like how to deal with homesickness. I'm gonna jump right into it and start talking about orientation. Orientation is a 3-day training school. With Au Pair in America, we got picked up from the airport. That person takes us to the hotel where we will be doing our orientation. In that orientation, they speak about everything that you would have done in your application. In your application, which I actually didn't mention, you have to do like a pre-departure test. You watch videos and you do like little quizzes. You have unlimited amounts of tries, so it's really not difficult. Once you do that test, then your application is complete. And in orientation, they re-explain everything that you've done in that online test. It's about like they teach you everything from like babies to dealing with teens. So you watch these videos and they teach you about all of the medical things that you need to know, and they teach you a lot of things. In orientation, they re-emphasize that because especially with other countries that don't speak English, they may not fully understand tests that they've been doing, and to have somebody explain it to them makes it easier for them to understand. And that's in a course of 3 days. And once those 3 days are over, you will meet your new host family. I stay in Connecticut. My host family fetched me from the hotel. I didn't have to catch a flight. If you're within New York or Connecticut, you might just have to catch a train, but that is covered, so you don't have to worry about paying an additional cost for that. The agency organizes your transportation to your host family. In orientation, they feed you. You have really good food. It's really cool. You meet people. So you're split into 2 rooms. People on the West Coast and people on the East Coast. East Coast is New York, Boston, Connecticut, Maryland, Washington, and the West Coast would be more like from Texas on. So like Texas, California, San Diego, San Francisco. It just makes it easier to separate the 2 groups. The orientation's really big. Once they've split you up, you can sit wherever. Nobody's forcing you to sit with only South African people, only German groups. You can sit anywhere, and that's where I met my really good friend. She was sitting close to me and we shared the hotel room together. That is also a part of orientation. Your accommodation is paid for. I met my friend Agnes, and I met a girl named Chardonnay too. She was also in my hotel room. She was also from South Africa. Agnes is also in my area. That's how we became good friends. She was staying in my hotel room. They put you together with people you can try and become friends with. Of course, you won't always mesh with certain people, and that's okay. It is nice if you do make friends, so you're with them the whole year. In the orientation package, they put in a New York City tour, and sometimes your host family will pay for it. My family did at the time. They may not, and you may have to pay for it. I think it was like $200 on one of the nights. I think it was the second night of orientation. They take you into New York City. You do like a tour of Times Square, the Rockefeller Center, which is like the Empire State Building. It's also like overlooking the whole of New York. It was really awesome. It was freezing cold. Everybody was like, oh, it's so warm. I was like, freezing compared to South Africa spring. If you can do the New York tour, I would highly recommend it. If you're not staying in New York, like I went on it because it was paid for, but it wasn't necessary. I know I can just take a train, but for people who've got families in Chicago or California, they would probably want to see New York. It's a really awesome opportunity for you to get a taste of the Big Apple. That's basically orientation. From there, you meet your family. My host mom at the time fetched me from the hotel that we were staying in, and she was late. I was so nervous. You have this whole expectation and idea of what your family will be like. You want everything to be perfect and you want everything to go well. You don't want things to be awkward because you've never met them before. Try not to be nervous. I promise you, you will know how everything will pan out in due time. My host mom was scary. I don't know, she was very intimidating because like I'm just a very friendly person. I went in and I hugged her. She was kind of like, she brushed me off, and that's I think one thing about Americans is that I can't speak for every culture, but for South Africans, we're very friendly people. Americans are not like that. In a sense, they are colder and they're more reserved. for the majority, not everybody is warm hugs and kisses, and so that was a bit of an awkward thing for me. We were late, we had to go and fetch her son, who she was obviously late for. I felt so intimidated from the first moment that I met my host mom. But obviously you can't judge within your first seconds of meeting the family. You have to give it time. You can't say, okay, it's been 5 minutes, I want to go home. That's something that a lot of au pairs don't realize, is that within the first week or 2 weeks, they're like, no, I can't do it, I don't like it, I'm not getting on with the kids, I want to go home. Being an au pair is tough, especially if you have younger kids. You have to build a relationship, even teenagers. I have now with my new family, because I did rematch, have teenager boys, and they're never rude, but they have mood swings. My one host kid was very shy, and in the beginning we barely ever spoke. Now we joke around all the time and we laugh. That's because you have to build a relationship. You won't build a relationship in 2 weeks, but just be aware of the signs. It can be awkward, and that's normal. I matched with my family in January. I only came to America in April. But in those 4 months, I was speaking to my host mom. You are trying to build a relationship, but speaking to somebody over the phone is completely different until you're living in their house. You can think that you matched with your perfect family like I did, and once you're living in the house, it might be different. Or you might be nervous and think that it's not going to be a good match, and then you get there and it's an amazing experience. Every single person's experience is different, and that's something that I struggle to understand, because once I rematched in the same area. And I'll talk about rematch in another video, but in summary, I rematched in the same area. I always felt like, what did she have that I didn't? And what could she do that I couldn't do? It's just different personalities. It's not that she's better than me or I'm better than her. It's just some families work better with different au pairs. I wasn't a good fit for that family. I do believe that everything will fall into place. Meeting your new family, you have to have an open mind. It's going to be awkward. Your kids are going to be shy. It just takes time. That brings me to my next topic of homesickness. I know a lot of people that suffer from homesickness. I definitely did. I won't lie, my homesickness was not as severe. I know like quite a few that went home. For me, like my sister and I were very independent, and so I was homesick. However, what I really missed the most was obviously my friends, my sister and my boyfriend, my parents, like having them like down the road, being able to see my boyfriend, which I didn't have here. And that was the homesickness I felt. I've had a lot of German friends who say they miss the food a lot. I wouldn't say I miss the food. I miss my mom's cooking, but American food is just different to South African food. I feel like there's just a lot of added sugar, added salt. Everything in America is very non-GMO. Calories next to everything that you order. They're very health conscious, and so some people miss the food and miss things that they used to eat. Dealing with homesickness, I feel like you should bring things that will remind you of home. Pictures and things to decorate your room. We have a store and it's called Five Below. Five Below has almost everything for under $5. They have a home decor section, and I would suggest decorating your room to make it homey. Like when I got to my host family, my room was so big, it felt so empty, and I felt so small in this big room. And I think a big part of homesickness is being distracted. We have these things called cluster meetings, and cluster meetings are once a month. Cluster meetings are so that you meet people, and you don't have to go to them, but to meet people is good, because there's nothing better than speaking to other au pairs who've gone through homesickness or who've felt shitty. And like, that's the thing, is everybody goes through it, and I think that the best way to deal with it is to speak to other au pairs and to make friends that you're distracted. I think it's not easy making friends. I can't say, yeah, just go and make friends, because some people are shy, and that's okay. Cluster meetings are nice because you have a range of girls who have been there for 1 month, for 9 months, for 5 months. I did not explain this properly. You have a cluster. A cluster is basically the area that you're in. There's one person who is your community counselor, and she is in charge of all of the au pairs within your area. There's au pairs down the road. I just met a South African au pair, and she's in my cluster, which is nice because I've been here for 9 months and she's been here for 2 weeks or a week, and I can share my experience with her. And it's nice because every au pair is on a different journey, and every au pair is here at a different time, it's really good to hear and to share an experience from somebody who knows and who's lived the experience of being an au pair. Remember, I also had a big sister when I came, and we were friends, and I saw her occasionally. We weren't super close, we didn't go out all the time, but when I saw her, it was a great time. We had a great conversation, and I think you don't have to be friends with everybody, and nobody's forcing you to make friends, but I honestly do believe that making friends and meeting people will help you a great amount with being homesick. I was lucky enough that I clicked very well with Agnes, the friend that I had in my hotel room, who she also stayed in my area, and she's been there for me through it all. Don't be afraid to meet new people, because everybody has gone through the same thing. I was the fish, like the little fish of the big pond. Is that even the right phrase? Homesickness will go away once you start getting used to the environment that you're living in. I think that communication is also a big thing. If you don't want to speak to your host family about it, speak to your community counselor or other au pairs. They don't necessarily have to be your friends. If you're struggling with something, speak to somebody about it. But if you bottle it up, you're just going to explode. Being an au pair is hard, and it does come with challenges, and there will be a culture shock. I can't pinpoint certain things, but for other cultures it's very different, like the way that they live their life here. It's just very different to back home, and I think that was an adjustment for me, but it was a good adjustment. So it was a good culture shock. I was like, wow, like your kids, you can leave your kids in the front yard to play on their, okay, not always, and this is just the area that I'm in, but your kids are fine to walk down the road. It's just a very kid-friendly area, and I think that was a good thing for me, but it is different. The lifestyle that they live here is very different to the lifestyle that I live back home. For some people that might be very hard to adjust to, and I know I'm just a easily adaptable person and kind of adjusted quick enough. I just want to close off with saying that as daunting and scary as it is meeting your new family and going through homesickness, it's such an amazing experience. And I know I keep saying that, but I think the opportunity to live on your own in another country really teaches you how to be independent. And I think that don't just go home and don't just give up. At least give it like a month or two just to test it, and if it's really that bad, then go home or like try to live with another family. But I honestly believe that everything just needs time, and before you know it, you're going to be comfortable, you're going to be settled, and everything, homesickness won't even be a thing anymore. It'll be a thing of the past. And I honestly think that through everything that I've gone through, rematch and all, this is honestly such an amazing experience. I really hope that you enjoyed my video and that I could kind of share light on homesickness, and that it isn't that bad, and that you can overcome anything within time. And if anybody is going through homesickness or you're struggling with something, I'm going to put my email down below. Feel free to email me and I'll happily speak to you and like try and share my experience with you. But for the rest of it, I really hope that you guys enjoyed my video, and I hope to see you guys in my channel. Please like and subscribe.